Hi, I'm Nettie, and although I live what I would say a pretty normal life, I actually am also very intuitive. I have been since a child, but in particular in my late 40s and now in my very early 50s, as I'm 51, I have been getting a lot more messages and information from Spirit. Um, I recently got a pretty amazing, I suppose you call it, download of information. And this came while I was sleeping, but also then when I wake up, I can go in and actually retrieve the information and get it in more detail. It's like they give it to me in like little kind of lecture theatre pods all at once, and then they can do. Some of them are shown with examples, some of them are information and that sort of stuff. So the main crust of it was to talk about our subconscious and our conscious, how that works with our spinal cord and our nervous system, how we receive information from spirit. It then talked about dreams and parallel lives. In fact, that's where it started. And then it talks about time and the constraints of time, and it goes through, sitting in your pineal all the way up to how memory is placed in that. So I've started doing for you a few different videos, and the first one I did was parallel lives and dreaming, and the second one was the subconscious. And during the subconscious, they actually referred to the conscious mind as an ant and the subconscious as a bullet train, as a fast speed train. And I was left thinking when I sat down and kind of regurgitated and wrote, drew all the diagrams for that. I actually thought, oh yeah, your conscious is just like the slow poor cousin, it's not as powerful as the subconscious. But then when I stopped and went into the information that I'd received about the conscious, I had a completely different kind of aspect. It's not the poor cousin at all. It is just as amazing and just as powerful as the subconscious. So please, those who haven't seen this subconscious one, go and have a look at that. And we'll talk about the conscious today. So the conscious mind is, as I said, it's the ant. And what they were referring to then was speed and capabilities. So the fast train can put a lot of people in it. It can go a long way quickly. It can go back and forth. That the energy and everything associated with that is on such a fast pace. Whereas they said, a really small ant is what your conscious mind is like. And so the information going into your conscious is really slow. It's one-dimensional. It's one ant. It's just going along at its own pace. It's sensitively picking up everything as it goes through. There's nothing kind of major that's happening. It's just this kind of one pace to one thing slow, which sounds like the boring cousin. But actually, it is so necessary. It belongs to the human body. Our conscious mind is something that we have been gifted as part of our human bodies, just as we've been given arms and legs and heart and a kidney and eyes and things like that. So what they wanted to say is that let me just take a moment, because sometimes they give me information as I'm trying to talk, and so I'm trying to relay what I'm doing, but I'm also trying to listen to what they're saying as I'm going to go. So, okay, so a human body works in what they're saying is one scenario. Okay, so it's one scenario, one pace, one person, one physical constraint. It has logic, it has rational thought, it has all those types of things associated with it. Whereas when we spoke about our subconscious is where it gives us images of what could happen in a physical situation all at once. It doesn't have time attached to it. So time is something that lives in our conscious. mind, not in our subconscious time. Subconscious is aware of time and understanding, but it doesn't relay that. It's not attached to a physical one being. So our conscious body, it controls and allows us to choose just one. So we can only do one thing. We can't have a look at, like our subconscious does, of all these different options and all these different feelings. We can't switch off a feeling, although to some degree we can, but our conscious really has all that information coming into it at all times. So we are in the environment that we're in our conscious. We are in a emotion or state where we're getting all those emotions coming in. We're feeling what we're feeling. We're feeling, if it's hot, we feel the hot air. If it's cold, we feel cold. So while we're in our conscious mind, we are actually so attached to our physical, and that's the point of it. It needs to be a one ant slow pace, so that it belongs to us, so that we can make those slow decisions, so that we can think through situations, so that we can have relationships with one person, have that bond. Whereas our subconscious mind is going a million miles an hour. It doesn't even have age. Like, it's just giving us scenarios. You can have a dream about through your subconscious of being 5. You could be where your mother is your daughter. You know, like the logic and the rational thought doesn't exist in there, but it does in our conscious mind. But one of the things that happens when you have that is, with all these emotions and energy and this physical body, you can actually trap kind of energy within it. So you can trap trauma, and you can trap, if you're sitting there and you're impatient, you're waiting for something, you can actually, your physical body will actually feel that, and your conscious mind will be going, okay, we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this, and it's not happening. And so it gets trapped within your body, and you might end up with a kind of a sore elbow, or a sore hip, and you're like, I don't know why, I'm just feeling agitated and I need to get up, I need to shake myself out. And it's because your conscious mind is feeling impatient and feeling all these kind of things, because it's in that one dimensional. It can't move through that. So it also connects on kind of 1 or 2 vibration levels. So someone like myself, who can visually see a lot of things in my conscious mind, so while I'm awake, I can actually tap into my subconscious when my mind gets to a certain vibration. And I actually hear at a higher vibration than what other people do as well. So for instance, I'll go into, there's a Kmart near us, and I think I've said this before in One Foot in Both World, Keeping It Real with Tanya and Nette. If you look back on the series 1, I think it is, I talk about how certain sounds and vibrations, they just are deafening to me, and I look around and no one ever noticed them. You know, the entrance to our Kmart nearby, I don't go there very often, but when I do, I walk in and I'm like this. It's like the vibration level hits, and I think that is because that's the vibration level that I hear sound at when I'm hearing spirit come through. And so I'm actually attached to this. It's whether it's an air conditioner or whether it's something that is in that area, that I can hear that sound at a high thing. So our conscious mind runs at certain different levels of vibration, which then brings in visions and sounds and smells and things like that as well, linked from our subconscious. So that's kind of pretty complex, but pretty cool. Also our senses belong to our conscious mind. So our seeing is part of our conscious, our smell, our taste, our physical, one world of that is actually part of our conscious, whereas our subconscious can bring in sounds and smells and things as well that then have to seep into our conscious for our conscious to actually understand it and interpret it. So there's a link that runs between our conscious mind and our subconscious mind, where our pineal, people have heard of the word pineal. It's actually in the center of those two, and it helps translate the information both ways. So at first I always thought, oh, the subconscious is super cool because it can then slow itself down to go down so that the little ant, the conscious mind, can understand. But then I thought, hang on a minute, the conscious mind feeds back to the subconscious as well and gets information. So that's pretty cool too, because the conscious mind can actually go through the pineal speed up so much and bring the information back. So it's a two-way street with that. It's like, how does an ant and a bullet take communicate with each other and understand each other? It's this little like link between this pineal, which is really, really cool. I remember doing, I did a course with Nancy Rebecca. I was kind of weirdly bought into this. If you listen to One Foot in Both Worlds first ever episode where Tanya and I talk for the first time and have just met, I talk about how I went through Nancy's, I think it's on that one, Nancy's, and then into Jeanette Byro's course and go there. But Nancy Rebecca, if anyone gets a chance, she does a 1 year, it's kind of like an intuitive, I think she calls it Psychic Mastery 1, but actually what it is, it's an intuitive connection course, and it's sort of an online, but there's also live tutorials with her and stuff like that. It's absolutely fantastic, so I highly recommend it. But she talks about at one stage in quite depth about, you know, the makeup of our brain, and I remember that it's just a chatting tutorial, and I'm so visual that I had to draw it. So here I am, and I get on the computer, I hand draw everything with my mouse on the computer. I'm terrible at it. If you watch the subconscious one, I've done this kind of head and brain hand drawing, and the drawings that you're going to see today actually belong to that. The ones that pop up, they're just kind of my hand drawings. So I have this kind of, you know, information coming through about the head and the pineal, and I drew it, and I drew all the little points that they said and all this information that they were talking about, and I couldn't quite get where they were saying something was. So I wrote to them and I gave them my diagram, and they're like, don't worry about it, it doesn't really matter. I'm like, no, it does to me, I need to know. And I kept on and on about this little bit for ages, and they didn't give me the answer. They just said, it doesn't matter, like, you're getting too obsessed with this, don't worry about it. But I now know that it was because this information that I'm getting, this relates to that, and that was like part of the plan for me to get to a point where I understood the language that they were talking about, because prior to that, really, I didn't know what a chakra was. I didn't really know what psychics did. I kind of understood. I knew what my abilities were. I did think people had stronger abilities than they do in general, and I was quite surprised how a lot of the things that I could do that other people just couldn't do, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm more intuitive than what I thought. So yeah, this pineal is it's a really important kind of connection between the subconscious and conscious, and it's actually where, if you can learn to sit in that, and Nancy teaches you that on the course, but we may run some little courses on that. Tanya and I are putting some together. Tanya's doing a really, really cool medium course. She does do one-on-one medium work with you as well, both readings but also mentoring, and she'll do group mentoring on mediumship and just intuition in general. So if you get a chance to sign up for that, it's brilliant. But I'm going to move on a little bit to just kind of understand where that all sits. So you've got your conscious, your subconscious, and you've got the middle section, which is your pineal. So that's where I actually sit when I'm doing a reading. I've worked that out. Like, as they were showing me all this, they were showing this kind of energy there, and that's when you can sit yourself into that energy. You can make decisions kind of void of your emotion, so you don't get drawn into your emotion. It's almost a more rational logic place, but it's also a deeper understanding of how everything is. It's not just a conscious understanding, so it's not a one-sided kind of emotion. You can go back in, and then you can very much easily feel what everybody else in the, say you're having a dispute with people, what everyone else is feeling, and you can just sort of flow into that. Super cool too is memory and how memory works, and they explained to me that memory is quite complex, but that there is two types of memory, a conscious and a subconscious memory. What they're trying to kind of say is that the memory sits in different places when it needs to. So you have short-term kind of memory sits very much in your conscious, and long-term memory will move back into your subconscious, and you sort of got to go in and get it. A few years ago, they showed me this understanding of memory for creative people and for people who were saying, I was speaking to someone who said, I have really bad memory. That's how it came up. And they told me to let them know that in fact they don't have bad memory. Everybody has very similar memory capabilities. It's just the way that you retrieve memory and the way you think that is different. So when somebody has like asked a question like, can you put a, I don't know, a round ball in a square hole, right? Or a better example is, when you're solving a problem, it's like, we've got 7 people coming over and we've got 4 bedrooms, and how we're going to actually fit everyone in. The person who actually has a good memory will actually, it's because they will enter their kind of conscious brain and their subconscious brain, and they will go into a spot that's, have I done this before? Have I had 7 people in a house before where I've had 4 bedrooms? And they start to go back in information. Have I seen this on TV? Have I read this in a book? Where have I seen this? And they go through basically data that they've had during their this physical conscious life. And they will say, no, I haven't done that before, or yes, I've done that before. And we put the 2 kids on the couch and we pulled out a bed on the floor, and then everyone had a space. But if they haven't done it before, they will come back and say, no, I don't think we can do it. That hasn't happened before. Whereas someone who is a creative thinker, who often says they have a bad memory, will actually not go into the memory bank first. They'll snip into the memory bank very quickly on the surface to say, have I done this before? I don't know, I don't think so. And then they'll come in and they will go into subconscious thought. And it's where they have no or limited parameters. And they'll just start to throw different ideas around, and it will be new thoughts. Okay, we've got beds, what could we do? And it's just, they'll start to piece bits together like a subconscious does. It doesn't have time and restrictions. And so it allows them to free think. And at first, the solutions might not necessarily be kind of a logical thought, but they will then form back into the brain into a logical thing and say, okay, we can actually do this. We can put 2 people on the couch, pull out a roller bed, and we'll have, 4 people in a room, and that will work fine. So they are not people with lacking memory. It's just the way their brain works. It doesn't go into memory to get answers. It's a free thinker. And the reason we were made in different ways from this is because we need the forward free thinking. We need the people who actually have really good memories and can recall things so that information isn't lost and learnt knowledge is actually brought forward. Doesn't mean that someone who's a creative thinker doesn't have learnt knowledge, because they actually do, but they'll usually, there's all different types of ones, but the one that they were showing me, they were saying that person has a really good memory for selected things. So they will remember how to weld something, or they will remember how to bolt something, or they'll say, oh, hang on, 12 years ago, we had something like this and we joint it with a connection. So they're more about how things are done rather than remembering a whole scene or a whole situation or dates. Like they very rarely know dates, because they're selecting time and things like that of data that they actually don't need to put in for the way that they're meant to move forward as a creative thinker. So you can actually, because we all have the same kind of capabilities within our brain, you can actually train your brain to become better at memory, and you can train your brain to become more creative by actually, moving those patterns and getting your body to go into it. Because it's not that you don't have it. It's not that, oh, I'm not a creative person, end of story. You can train your brain to become more of a creative person and to not look for those facts and datas, which is super cool as well. And that comes a bit into the way that the conscious and the subconscious work and their connection in between. So I hope you've enjoyed this. My next video, which I'm going to do straight after, is I'm just going to summarize all this. So if you want to understand it from a holistic point of view, I'm going to have a diagram for it, and I will give you a summary of how that all works. But talk to you soon, be kind, and it was great that you were tuning in.